We took a 2-night May Bank Holiday cruise with MSC Virtuosa, also known as a party cruise, full of stag and hen do's. But we went as a family of 4, 2 adults and 2 children. So what did we think? Was this party cruise really okay for children? The first thing we did was drop off our luggage to our room. We made sure we checked in as early as possible so we'd get an early boarding time, and we were on board by about 10:30 in the morning. We booked an inside cabin originally, and as it was only a short cruise and relatively cheap, I placed a bid to get an upgrade, and we were successful. Although with hindsight, whilst the cabin was lovely, I'd have probably stuck with the inside cabin because the location was far superior. MSC Virtuosa is a very large ship and only really has 2 lift banks. So if you're at the very aft of the ship, it can be quite a trek to actually get to an elevator. And this meant, particularly on a small cruise, we tended to find ourselves avoiding going back to the cabin because it was just too far to walk. So we just carried all of our stuff around with us all day for swimming, etc. The cabin itself was actually a really good layout though. And it was nice to see that the sofa bed actually converted into bunks rather than a pull-out trundle, which can often mean tripping over the bed to get around the room and making the room feel smaller than it actually needed to be. There was plenty of storage, and again, whilst we were only on for 2 nights, we'd happily spend a week on board in a cabin like this. Generally, it felt quite modern, although definitely some signs of wear and tear as the ship's getting a little bit older now. There were drinks left in the fridge. If we were on board for longer, I'd ask for these to be removed because they are chargeable and not included with your fare, even if you have the all-inclusive drinks package. As you can see, there's plenty of storage for a family of 4. Especially when you store the suitcases under the bed to give yourself that extra bit more room. As we were at the very back of the ship, our balcony was actually a metal balustrade, so it's quite difficult to see. You had to stand up. I would not choose this location again in future. That said, the balcony was a good size. The bathroom was really nice. Loved the fact that you had quite a big shower area with a screen, not a curtain. It didn't feel cramped in there at all. And again, plenty of storage within the bathroom area. They really did make the best use of space with a cupboard under the sink, which might be quite hard to spot unless you knew it was there. And then some weird plugs up at the ceiling. Again, you might not notice these if you didn't know where to look. We went up and explored the pool deck. Now, one of my top tips if you are thinking of doing a party cruise is that at Sail Away, this is going to be absolutely jam-packed with lots of people partying. The music on a party cruise is very much party music. So whilst it's nice and quiet now, it was first thing in the morning. And we decided to head straight to the water slides to make the most of those before a lot of other passengers got onto the ship. The splash zone was a real hit. The water in there was actually very warm, even though this was the early May Bank Holiday. And whilst it might look quite sunny, it wasn't actually that warm out. This is where you'll also find the Himalayan rope area. which actually is a lot higher than it looks, and quite a few people changed their minds, having queued up for a little while to get on it. I'd say this splash zone is brilliant for slightly younger children or those not brave enough to go on the water slides themselves. There was plenty to keep them entertained. There is a bar area, but this wasn't open on our cruise. The water slides were great fun. Some of them you used a tube to go down, and others you went down on your own. We decided to avoid the buffet at lunchtime because this was absolutely heaving. Instead, we went to the Mexican restaurant and we ate some a la carte lunch. This was a great tip as you can see, this was really quiet, as was most of the promenade area at this time. After that, whilst everybody else was enjoying the sail away party up on the pool deck, we went to the Bionic Bar, which was great fun watching the robot make you a cocktail. That included non-alcoholic ones for the children. Although be warned, even if you're on a drinks package, this is not included. You do get a souvenir mug to take home with you. And on our cruise, there was a total of 4 to collect. There's some seating in this area, although it does get busy in the evenings. And there's also free-to-play video games. Which you can sit and play whilst you enjoy your cocktail. We then decided to have a look at the bowling, knowing that would be really quiet whilst everybody else was exploring the rest of the ship. There's 2 decent sized bowling alleys here, and one of the benefits of cruising on one of the party cruises is there were less children, and therefore the whole arcade and entertainment area felt a lot less quiet. We never had to queue to get on anything that we wanted to do. The simulator was great fun for adults and children alike, although you do need to be a certain height to be able to operate it fully. The virtual reality was brilliant. We loved the promenade area, and on our first evening went to one of the paid-for shows, which was well worth the money because it was more entertaining for the children, with acrobatics. This was about £9 each on our cruise. It did come with a free cocktail. There's an atrium at one end of the promenade with some nice bar areas to sit and relaxing. They also played live music at the bottom of the atrium for a more relaxed evening. This then opened up into the main promenade, where most of the onboard venues and bars were located, and all of the shops. The theatre was also off of the little atrium area. On this 2-night cruise, one night we ate at Indochine and found the food to be of very good quality. And on the second night, we ate in the main dining room. We chose the early sitting, knowing that this would be more adult-themed cruise, And that was very relaxed, and the service was very prompt, given that we arrived as soon as the restaurant opened. The best tip for coming on a party cruise as a family is to work out where everybody who wants to be having a good time and drinking with their friends is going to be, and be somewhere completely different. So use the bars and restaurants early on in the evening and avoid them when they're really busy late at night if you don't want to be stuck with lots of crowds and people perhaps being a bit more rowdy than would otherwise be the case on one of these cruises. However, we found everybody to be in really good spirits, and our children really enjoyed seeing people dressing up on hen do's and for birthday parties, and everybody was really polite and engaging with the children. A lot of the kids' activities were all centred in one area. This was around the sports deck. There was an area for teens to hang out, and that led through to all of the different kids' clubs. There was a Lego theme, although not too much Lego activities happening. And even on the 2-night cruise, the kids' club were open as they usually would be on any other cruise that you might go on. There are activities throughout the day for families, many of which were held here in the Sportsplex. We did attend the silent disco, which was held here. That felt a little bit strange. It felt like being at a school disco as it was in the sports hall. There's no bar in the area, and there was a huge queue of people who wanted to get in and enjoy the silent disco, whereas actually we found that it wasn't worth queuing up and waiting for, and we'd have much rather spent the time doing something else instead of visiting the Sportsplex for that. There's a decent size arcade, and you can buy a fun pass which gives you extra credit, and the more you spend in advance, the more extra credit you get. This was a big hit with the children on this cruise. And you can also use the fun pass for bowling, the virtual reality, and the cinema on board, as well as the racing car simulator. is a bar in this area, but we found that it was hardly ever open. Not sure if that was because it was a 2-night cruise, but interestingly, it wasn't open when there was the silent disco happening right next door. Instead, you had to follow the doors out to the outdoor bar. The main show on the second evening was very good. We've always enjoyed the shows on MSC. And you can see the show along the promenade. If you look up, that's on every evening. They did lay on a children's disco. And as you can see, even though it's a party cruise, there are plenty of children on board. So overall, do we think this cruise is for families? Absolutely. MSC Virtuosa was definitely a family-friendly ship, and we would definitely book a 2-night cruise again. The only problem is 2 nights is a little bit too short for any cruise, and actually 3 would have been much better. But if you get a good deal, and you often can on these cruises, then I'd 100% recommend it to spend a great bank holiday weekend doing something a little bit different.